Welcome to Chasing a Murderer, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great week. I want to mention before we get started, my voice is a little raspy today. It's allergy season for me. I hope you all had a fabulous holiday and Happy New Year. I wanted to share with you that we have some interesting updates attached to the Idaho murders and the suspect involved in that case, Bryan Kohberger. It was just weeks later that Brian Kohberger was arrested for the murders of the four students. A Washington State University student studying criminology and psychology, he only stayed minutes away where the crime happened. We've learned a little bit about him from online sources and people who claim to know him, but it's really not that much. Most of us have been waiting on a hearing for Brian's extradition, and that has come and gone. The judge has ruled that Brian is heading to Idaho, but we are not sure when that will be. They are claiming to be, the next few days, but what can we expect once Brian arrives in Idaho? According to several sources, once he arrives in Idaho, he's very excited and plans to read the probable cause affidavit. Like ourselves, Brian has no idea what the police have connected him to when it comes to the four slayings of these students. We're learning that he's very anxious to get back to Idaho to see what's pointing him to the crime. During this hearing, we're learning that he walked into the courtroom with his head up, and a few witnesses that were able to see what was happening inside that courtroom said that they seen him look at his family, his mom, dad, and sisters, and that the mother and sister were seen crying. I mean, could you imagine seeing your child or brother up there being accused of such heinous crimes? And video sources that show him walking to and from the courtroom, his head is held high. Very unlike many people who have been accused of such bad crimes. But then again, you have the BTK killer, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy. They really didn't show much shame or remorse or guilt. Not Brian. Brian's head high. He takes a glance at someone or something as he passes the cameras. We can look at this from two perspectives. One, where he's guilty and there's no remorse and he's a bit proud, and at least from an onlooker's point of view. If he is innocent, then he has no worries. He could care less. Both say he's not afraid of what anyone thinks. It seems that the cameras are just a piece of cake, no problem. I'm just interested to know what might be happening inside his head as we move forward. Before we move any deeper into new information that I've learned, I want to show you something else. It's new as well, but we keep hearing about Brian Kohberger. He drove from Washington State with his father in his white vehicle to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Right now, several media sources are fighting first to get that video out there to the public. And this is what I've learned. So according to investigators, they believe that Brian left Washington State with his father, who flew in from Pennsylvania to Washington so that he could drive back to Pennsylvania for the holidays with his son in mid-December. We do not have exact dates at this time. A few weeks after the crimes, this happened. While driving on a highway headed back to Pennsylvania, their home, they believe that Brian and his father were pulled over twice, and they have video referencing at least one of those traffic infractions. Police said that at the time that these two were stopped and pulled over, they knew nothing related to the license plate or the state in which the car was registered. So let's look at this clip. You can see here that Brian, if we pause it about here, he appears to be very excited or nervous as the cop approaches their car. Now you got to put yourself in his shoes. If he is the responsible party of those 4 lives of those 4 students. Is this a face of guilt? Is this a face of thrill? Is this a face of being scared to death? Perhaps he was scared since his parent was in the car. Remember, they're saying that Brian actually got pulled over, which we'll talk about in a second, right before they were pulled over this time. So I'm guessing he was probably scared, thinking they might have caught on to who he might be. Regardless, we do know that Brian is concerned about how his family feels about what's going on. The policeman actually talked to him a little bit, gave him a verbal warning, sorry guys, and then let them head on their way. But before that, the cop asked him, where are they going or where are they headed? The words are hard to make out, but in an article on TMC, they seem to have made those words out. They said that the cop asked where they are going, and they reply, Pennsylvania, to which the cop says, as he laughed, quote, that's a long haul. Are you guys scared of airplanes? End quote. At some point during this encounter, Michael Kohberger mentions that there was a shooting near Washington State University, adding that that is where his son went to school. A man had barricaded himself in an apartment near the university and threatened to kill his 2 roommates. He died in a police shootout. I looked it up and it appears that's what happened. Someone was very good at keeping up with that stuff. According to Indiana State Police, where they were pulled over, just minutes before that traffic stop, the 2 men were stopped by a deputy from Hancock County, and so they were actually released on a verbal warning that time as well. So obviously, the first warning didn't mean anything to them. And again, you have to think, I really do believe that he thought there was a chance he might have been caught, if guilty, on that second traffic violation. Now, there's something else that has come out over the past few days where we're getting roundabout hints that Brian might have had a connection to one of the students who died that November 11th, 2022. The rumors that I'm hearing is that it might be through a vegan restaurant, and perhaps one of the girls, perhaps Kaylee. There was something else I wanted to share with you before I close out, and it was where one of the restaurants that come forward to give us an idea of a few notes that they had written about this customer, notes of warning and his social mannerisms. In the New York Post, it said that he allegedly frightened a woman staffer at the Pennsylvania brewery near his hometown. According to the witnesses that are sharing this happened several months ago at the Sirens Brewing Companies, and it happened several times, where supposedly he was harassing a woman who worked there. This is according to the owner, Jordan, who is 34. Brian would come into the bar and he would sit alone, just observing and watching. According to them, he stood out for his interactions with employees and patrons. The brewery actually scans everyone's ID. It has a system in which staff members can add notes or comments about the person, whoever is visiting that day. And if that ID gets notes, when their ID is scanned again, well, those notes pop up. One staff member put on one of the notes linked to his name, hey, this guy makes creepy comments. Keep an eye on him. He'll have 2 or 3 beers and then get a little too comfortable. They said that Brian would ask women, staff, or customers who they were at the brewery with. He would ask where they lived. If the women weren't interested, that he would get upset a little bit. Again, we're hearing all these things, but they lack details. Upset how? It's hard to see, a guy asking women, where do you live? Or trying to ask questions if they're interested in trying to make a connection. They do worse than that on the internet. But then they give one instance. He said that they can recall when he asked an employee a question she wouldn't answer, so he calls her a bitch. So, I mean, Kohberger, he's reaching out to people, but he's not getting a good response. Again, this is something that seems to repeat in his life. When Brian returned to the brewery, the owner said that he was forced to confront Brian during his final visit to this place. He said, quote, "I went up to him and I said, 'Hey, Brian, welcome back. We appreciate you coming back. I just wanted to talk to you real quick and make sure that you're going to be respectful this time and we're not going to have any issues.'" And at that time, he said Brian seemed stunned. He said, quote, "He was shocked that I was saying that. And he said, 'I don't know what you're talking about. You totally have me confused.'" The owner said that Brian stayed just for one beer, then he left and never returned. Remember last video where he had a friend from high school mention the fact that Brian was bullied. He wasn't just bullied, he was bullied a lot. And after confrontations that he would leave immediately, run away. So here we have two instances where people say that once he's confronted, he doesn't get upset. He doesn't say anything disrespectful. He just walks away and never comes back. I wanted to share more information with you guys. Maybe we can put up another video a little later. Because I wanted to talk about, I've already started another video before this one. I just haven't finished it. Where Brian Kohberger's attorney in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania. Confusing, guys. He's been quite chatty. I want to talk to you guys about that. So before we go, don't forget about these faces that are out there missing. Please share their story. Share their face. Okay, one quick tip on Brian Kohberger before we close. We are learning that one of his professors, and she said that he was just a brilliant student. One of the first that she's ever recommended for the PhD program. Also, we have this one other little tip here. I don't know if you've heard or not, but it's something new I've learned, that Brian Kohberger initially agreed to speak with law enforcement, then later on invoked his right to counsel. So it's going to be interesting when we're able to see, where the police first take him in. So share what you've learned below if I missed something, and make sure you say hello. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to help support this channel. And if you would like to donate to help keep this channel rolling, you can donate to Chasing a Murderer Patreon. Between researching and all, I haven't had time to really set up much anything else. Thank you for your support. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.